Hello, you're welcome again. My name is Dr. Matute, UAPTC, University of Arkansas, PTC, and this will be a brief demonstration of the respiratory system for the AMP2 class. It is required that you have the study material that have been provided to you next to you. So we'll start off by doing a very brief introduction here, or the brief functions of the respiratory system, which should justify why we are trying to study the respiratory system. If you check the study materials provided to you, you have about 7 functions there of the respiratory system. But among them, the two primary functions are the intake of oxygen and the expelling of carbon dioxide. Intake of oxygen and the expelling of carbon dioxide. Why do we need to intake oxygen? It is used for energy production. Why do we need to exhale carbon dioxide? It is a metabolic waste which is toxic. It is poisonous to the cell, so it needs to be sent out of the body. You can go in there and look at the other secondary functions, speech production, acid-base balance, olfactory sense, etc., etc. Now, if you look at let's look at the main anatomical divisions of the respiratory system. We can divide them into the airways, the lungs, the respiratory muscles, and the bony thorax. For the main anatomical divisions of the respiratory system, the airways, the lungs, the respiratory muscles, and the bony thorax. Now, the airways, they are responsible for bringing in oxygen and for taking out carbon dioxide. The airways are responsible for the bringing in of oxygen and the taking out of carbon dioxide. And if you look at the airways, there are four main structures that constitute the airway: the nose, the pharynx, the larynx, and the trachea. The nose, the pharynx, the larynx, and the trachea. If we see over here, look at this model right here. I hope you can actually see this. So these are nose right over here. This will be our over here. This is going to be our pharynx. From there to here, this will be our pharynx. Then this is our larynx over here, and then the blue and white, the strapped blue and white, that will be the trachea. This is the trachea right here. The strapped blue and white, this is the trachea. From here to here, this is the larynx, and then this is the pharynx. So we have the nostrils over here, we have the pharynx over here, we have the larynx here, and then we have the trachea, here. So those are the 4 main components that actually makes up the airways. So one more time, the main functions of the airways is to bring oxygen into the lungs and to take carbon dioxide away from the lungs. The next structure we want to look at is the lungs. Here, the lungs right here. That's their position right in there. The lungs, they are the primary organs of respiration. The lungs, they are the primary organs of respiration. The reason why they are the primary organs of respiration is because they are used for gaseous exchange. That is where gaseous exchange takes place. Now, the respiratory muscles. We have the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm over here. This is one of the respiratory muscles. We have the rib cage muscles. We'll talk about that later on. Over here, we have them right here. The rib cage muscles right here. And then we have the abdominal muscles. The abdominal muscles, we cannot see them. If they're supposed to be somewhere over here, around where you have your abdomen. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Then we have the bony thorax. Over here, this over here, this is a bony thorax. Another name for the bony thorax is going to be a thoracic cavity. So these are the four main anatomical components of the respiratory system. Now let's talk about the nose. So the nose is the first port through which air or oxygen enters our body. And if you take time to look at your nose, it actually has some hair in there. It also has some mucus in there. What it does is the hair and the mucus, they act as filters. They trap microorganisms, they trap those particles so that we don't inhale them into our body. The nose also it warms air, it also moistens air before that air actually enters in our bodies. Now let's not also forget that we also breathe with we smell with our nose. So when we breathe in, then we are able to actually smell. The pharynx, which is this portion right here. So when the oxygen enters the nose, eventually pass there, and then it enters the pharynx. This is the pharynx here. The pharynx receives the air from the nasal cavity as the air is on its way to the lungs. Then the larynx, this portion right here. So if you're looking at this model, this will be the larynx will be from here to here. This will be the larynx. So this will be the pharynx right here. The larynx will be near to here. The larynx, it actually protects the lower airways, and it is also used for speech production. It's also used for speech production. Now, the larynx is the last tubular structure that channels the air to the trachea. Now, the trachea, which is this one right over here, the white and blue straps, that's the trachea, you can see right here. This is the trachea right here. It's a trachea. The trachea, of course, is a final passageway for air that actually enters into the lungs. And the trachea is divided into two. So this is the trachea over here. It divides into the right portion and the left portion. This right division is called the right. So this will be called the right bronchus. This will be called the left bronchus. Now, this left and right bronchus, they will end up forming the left lung and the right lung. Left lung and the right lung. So the division of the trachea into the right and left forms the left lung and the right lung. So this division will be called, both of them will be called bronchi. One is called a bronchus. Now, if you look at the lungs, over here, we'll have the model of the lungs. This is the right lung and this is the left lung. You will see that the right lung is divided into 3 lobes. This is one lobe, second lobe, and the third lobe. The left lung is divided into 2 lobes. One lobe, 2 lobes. One lobe, 2 lobes. Now, the lobes of the right lung, this will be called the superior lobe, the middle lobe, superior lobe, middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. Superior, middle, and inferior. For the left lung, we have the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. Now, given that the lungs are the primary organs of respiration, how are the lungs actually adapted to their functions? So the lungs are made up of elastic tissue. They're made up of spongy tissues. I'm sure you can see the small cavities there to show its sponginess, made up of spongy tissues. It has blood vessels. The red and the blue, those are blood vessels. The blue will be veins. The red will be arteries. And then we also have nerves in here so that the nervous system can actually control what is happening in the lungs. And then the lungs also, they present a large surface area. Oftentimes, you see that the lungs, they can actually inflate. That's actually increasing the surface area for gaseous exchange. So there are 5 adaptations of the lungs to its function. Number 1, it has elastic tissues that can make it expand. It has spongy tissues, which means it has some cavities through which air can be stored in there. It had blood vessels. Blood vessels, they bring in oxygen and they take away carbon dioxide. Then, or rather, the blood vessels here, there will be the veins. The veins will bring in oxygen poor blood, and once it has been exchanged, and then the arteries will pick up the oxygen-rich blood, and then they'll return that to the general circulation. But for the functioning of the lung itself, it has the arteries that supplies it with nutrients and oxygen, and it has the veins that takes away waste from that. Then, of course, it has the nerves for nervous control, and then it presents a large surface area. So one more time, 5 adaptations: elastic tissues, spongy tissues, blood vessels, nerves, and a large surface area. Now, the subdivisions of the internal airways. Now, once as the trachea has divided into the 2 bronchi, those 2 bronchi, they continue to subdivide. They continue to subdivide until eventually they form the alveoli sac. They'll continue to subdivide until eventually they'll form the alveoli sac. So, for example, if you see here, this is a primary bronchus. You can see that it subdivides into 2 here, and then this one subdivides, and then this one subdivides, etc. This subdivision will continue until finally the alveoli sacs will be formed. The alveoli sacs, they are the actual site for gaseous exchange. Now, these subdivisions in here, they can be divided into 3 main anatomical categorizations. So we have the primary. So we have the bronchi. So this bronchi here on both sides, they'll divide it. So we'll have the primary bronchi, which will divide into the secondary bronchi, and they will divide to the tertiary bronchi. So there are going to be 3 subdivisions of the bronchus: primary bronchus, secondary bronchus, and tertiary bronchus. Now, after the tertiary bronchus, the next subdivisions are called bronchioles. The bronchioles will divide into the terminal bronchioles and the respiratory bronchioles. And then from the respiratory bronchioles, the alveoli duct will be formed, which will end up in the alveoli sacs. So we'll have something like this. So we'll have the primary here. It will divide into this. That will be secondary, and this will divide into this. This will be tertiary here. Then this tertiary will divide into the terminal bronchioles. See here. So this is going to be the terminal bronchioles. And over here we're going to have the respiratory bronchioles. So this is a trachea right here. It divides into, so this will be the this will be a primary bronchus. The primary bronchus will divide into, this will be a secondary bronchus. And then the secondary bronchus will divide, okay, I may have to make a modification here. And then these secondary bronchioles will divide into until tertiary bronchioles, and then these tertiary bronchioles will subdivide into, I hope you can see this, into the terminal bronchioles and respiratory bronchioles. All right, if that is too low, I'll come up one more time. So we have the bronchi will divide into primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, and tertiary bronchi. Then the bronchioles will divide into the terminal bronchioles, and the respiratory bronchioles. Then the bronchioles will subdivide into the alveoli ducts, which will end up in the alveoli sacs. And the alveolar sacs is the actual site for gas exchange. So the internal division of the airways will be from the bronchi to the bronchioles, and from there to the alveoli duct and alveolar sacs. Now let's look at the muscles of respiration. The muscles of respiration. We have the diaphragm. We have the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm right over here. Diaphragm right over here. And the diaphragm is located below the lungs. So these are the lungs. It's located below the lungs and the heart. The heart sits right here. And when the diaphragm contracts, it increases. When the diaphragm contracts, it either increases or depresses the thoracic cavity. When the diaphragm contracts, when the diaphragm contracts, it changes the volume of the thoracic cavity. When we are inhaling, the diaphragm depresses. When we are exhaling, the diaphragm elevates. So the diaphragm can elevate, the diaphragm can depress. When the diaphragm depresses, it increases the volume in here. When the diaphragm elevates, it decreases the volume in here. Now, but when the diaphragm, when it depresses and increases the volume here in the thoracic cavity, then the pressure will decrease. When it elevates and decreases the volume here in the thoracic cavity, then the pressure will increase. The third set of respiratory muscles are called the abdominal muscles. They are found somewhere here. They are called the abdominal, let's go back to the rib cage. The rib cage, the muscles of the rib cage. So we have the internal intercostal muscles, the external intercostal muscles. We have the pectoralis major, the serratus, etc. Now, for the intercostal muscles, these are the intercostal muscles right here. You'll find them between the ribs. So we'll have the external intercostal and the internal intercostals. So whether they contract or they relax, they help in changing the volume of the thoracic cavity and also help in changing the pressure of the thoracic cavity. Those two factors are essential for breathing to occur. Then the third group of muscles will be the abdominal muscles. The abdominal muscles will be found somewhere right here around the abdomen. They are rightly called the accessory expiratory muscles. Accessory expiratory muscles. So in other words, they help in the process. They may not be they help in the process. So even if you have a diagram of the muscles, you will have the rectus abdominis, the external oblique, the internal oblique, and the transversus abdominis. Rectus abdominis, external oblique, internal oblique, and the transversus abdominis. So these are muscles that are found here. They all help in the respiratory process. When they contract or they relax, they affect the volume of the thoracic cavity or the bony thorax. The next is the bony thorax. Here we go. So this will be a bony thorax right here. This will be a bony thorax around our chest area. So what is one of the functions of the bony thorax? It protects the organs of respiration. So since as we have the lungs in here, when we put this one right in here, it protects the organs of respiration. It also contributes to the mechanics of breathing. Since that it is part of the rib cage, it also contributes in actually when the bony thorax has to expand or it has to contract. Now, as we said already, the respiratory volume here changes. It could increase or decrease. The respiratory pressure here also changes. It could increase or decrease. All of that is assisted by the actions of the bony thorax, because as you see, the bony thorax or the thoracic cavity, sometimes it increases in volume, sometimes it decreases in volume. Now, this leads us to volume-pressure relationship. What is the relationship between volume and pressure in respiration? So, when respiratory muscles, when they contract, they increase the thoracic volume here, and they will decrease the partial pressure of oxygen. Therefore, oxygen will move from the external environment to the internal environment. One more time. When the respiratory muscles here, when they contract, they increase the volume of the thoracic cavity and they decrease the partial pressure of oxygen, so oxygen will be inhaled. On the other hand, if these thoracic muscles, when they relax, they will decrease the volume of the thoracic cavity. When they decrease the volume, the pressure of carbon dioxide here increases, and when that happens, carbon dioxide is exhaled. So what we've seen here is there is an inverse relationship between volume and pressure. There is an inverse relationship between volume and pressure. What is the meaning of inverse relationship? When one increases, the other one decreases. So when the volume of the thoracic cavity increases, the pressure decreases. When the pressure increases, the volume decreases. This is essential for gaseous exchange. This is a bell jar model of respiration. This is the bell jar model of respiration. This glass portion here is representing the bony thorax. The two balloons you see in there, they are representing the two lungs. What I'm holding at here, this is the pharynx. It opens somewhere down there into the trachea, whitish, and then the trachea divides into two, and into the two primary bronchi. And those primary bronchi, they now, each of them goes now and actually forms the left and right lung. this portion down here. This is the diaphragm. This is the diaphragm. So if I pull down on the diaphragm, you can see that the volume has increased and the lungs inflate. When the lungs inflate, it means that oxygen has been inhaled. Now, when I push the diaphragm upwards, which means the volume has decreased in them, you can see that the lungs, they deflate, which means that volume has decreased, pressure has increased, and carbon dioxide has been sent out of the body. That we call exhalation. Thank you.